Okay everyone, welcome back. We're almost there now, really exciting, and we're almost there to a fully fledgling dashboard. We're going to look at the housing data. Let me show you how I've been looking at it, okay? And I think it's overkill. I've had a little bit of a thought about this, and I think it's really too over the top, okay? Half the time I don't even bother looking at half this stuff, so I'm going to use this as an opportunity to improve things for myself as well as for you. That's why I love doing this, building this stuff, as in this course as well, because it helps me as well, in a selfish way. Call it good karma, sharing all of this. It helps me as well, because basically what it is, let's start from the beginning. So when it comes to housing data, let me just go here because my head is blocking some of the information. So the way that housing data works, okay, is it is released on a monthly basis. At the moment, like I said, because housing is fairly healthy, and obviously it's not a primary piece of data. In the past, in 2008, it has been a primary piece of data because we had a housing crisis and a bubble and all of that. So you can see here, relatively some of it is going to be low impact now. So can you see? Building permits, housing starts, they tend to be relatively low impact, and then we can see here new home sales, which is quite a commonly cited number, and also existing home sales, which I don't see. I'm able to find. There you go. You can see existing home sales is medium impact. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to be clever about this. We're just going to take the items that kind of cover all bases. What do I mean by that? Okay, so as you can see, the way I've been looking at it here is I've got everything. Okay, so I've got building permits and housing starts. Okay, which is, do you see these two? Building permits and housing starts. Okay, now you can build these if you want, but can you see they're so highly correlated? I'm not actually getting much out of looking at both. So what I am going to look at, it's up to you how you do this. I think building permits for me are slightly better, because before starting work on a home, right? So before starting construction, essentially, if you look at housing starts, right? Housing starts are what? Began construction, annualized number of new residential buildings that began construction. You can't begin construction without a permit, okay? When you get the permit, you then begin construction. So it kind of makes sense that majority of those permits, once you get the permit, you're going to start construction. So why do I want to look at both of those? Okay, so we're going to be clever about this. I'm not going to get you to build both of these. So let's just have one. Okay, building permits. Focus on that number. Can you see they're so close together? 1.68, 1.7. It's just pointless having both of them. It really is overkill what I've been doing up until now. Again, just to remind you, got both of them there. Okay, so you can see building permits and housing starts. They're so highly correlated, very similar numbers. I'm not going to get anything out of them. So we're going to look at just building permits. Okay, and it is released slightly earlier than home sales, so that's great. So let's focus on building permits. That's what I'm going to do. Obviously you can do different to me if you want, but that's how I would suggest you do it. And then a few days later, and let's have a look what they say about building permits. Okay, excellent gauge of future construction activity, because obtaining a permit is among the first steps in constructing a new building. Okay, and if you actually look for housing starts, leading indicator of economic health, because building construction produces a wide-ranging ripple effect, which it does. Obviously, it's job creation, construction workers, as you can see here. A lot of construction activity basically, but just because we don't look at it don't mean we're missing out on that. We're not. Building permits is ultimately what leads to housing starts. Okay, so we've got it all covered. Okay, so building permits we're going to look at. If we then go to the following week where you get the home sales, so that's more to do with construction, right? Getting a permit, starting construction. Sales is ultimately selling, isn't it? Now, the market likes to look at existing home sales, okay, and that's because it's a much bigger number. Existing home sales, 6.46 million right, on a annualized basis, you see the annualized number of residential buildings that were sold during the previous month, excluding new construction. New construction is this, new home sales. Can you see there's a lot less new homes sold in the US in a year? 744,000 annualized number of single family homes that were sold compared to existing home sales. Okay, it's also a very volatile number. Let me show you. So I've got them plotted. Can you see I've plotted home sales, new home sales and existing home sales? Look at existing home sales, so much smoother, the blue line, right, very smooth. New home sales tends to be a little bit volatile. They are fairly correlated again. You know, if I had to choose one, if I'm not looking at one and I'm looking at the other, am I really missing out? Not really. If I had to choose one, I'd choose existing home sales because it covers a broader range of the population, doesn't it? And we can see that because existing home sales, there's 6.46 million on an annualized basis. There's 10 times less new home sales in a year, right? So I don't need to look at both of them. I'm not going to be missing anything. I may as well focus on existing home sales. And the market agrees with me. Can you see it's a medium impact? New home sales is a low impact, okay? We're traders. We're here to try and gauge what is going to move the market. If the market is clearly telling me that it likes that number as a gauge of activity, why am I doing anything contrary to that? I'm applying a bit of logic and saying, you know what, that makes a lot of sense to me. I'm covering kind of, if total home sales are, you know, just over 7 million, because 6.46 plus 744,000, 6.46 million plus 744,000 is around 7 million, and I've got 90% of those sales covered in that number. Why would I even look at new home sales instead of existing home sales? So we're going to look at just existing home sales. I think it makes a lot of sense, because otherwise what you'll end up doing is what I've got here. I've gone a little bit overkill. I've got one graph there looking at building permits and housing starts, and I've got existing home sales and new home sales, and then I bring it all together and I look at building permits and existing home sales. So what we're going to do is we're just going to bring it all together now. I'm just having extra tabs for no reason. Okay, so let's do what we just highlighted there. We're going to plot, when we follow housing data, we're going to follow existing home sales, and then obviously we want to look at the data that comes earlier than that, which is the permits number here, building permits. Okay, so let's do that, right? So let's start a tab called housing, and the best way to do this is, because we've got two pieces of data, let's use one of the tabs that has two pieces of data, because we're going to be looking at permits and existing home sales. So let's hit control, drag CPI across, all the way across here. Okay, remember it's in week 3. Okay, if you go to your calendar tab, housing data, week 3, just after industrial production. Some of it does drag across, as we know, but we'll just put it just after industrial production, so we've got it there. Change the name. Let's just call it housing week 3. Okay, good enough. Okay, and we're going to change the tab color to no color. Okay, because it's not a primary piece of data. You know, if we miss it, we're not going to panic about it. You know, we're just going to have a brief look at it every month, kind of see what's going on in the housing sector, but it's not a major focus for traders at the moment in time, but it may be in the future, so it's worth having it there. Now what do we want? We want two pieces of data. We want the building permits. Okay, so that's that. So find your latest building permits release. For me, that happens to be here, December the 16th. And we're just going to do our usual process. Okay, so we're going to copy that data here. We're going to put it here. Actual forecast and previous. You can see why I don't go to the Census Bureau website, because the format they may have it in is going to be all over the place. Here, it's all in that actual forecast previous, nice laid out for me. So I'm just going to copy it. Okay, here I'm going to do paste, match destination formatting. Okay, Now, it is copied as text, okay, so Excel doesn't know this is 1.71, it just sees it as a text, 1.71M, it doesn't even know what that is. So we're going to have to change that, but don't worry, we won't do it immediately. Let's put the correct date in, December 16th. So change that to 16th of December 21, and of course your local, do it in your local format. Again, December is for November, so make sure you've got the correct month, data month there, and then the release date. So that's all correct, I'm very happy with that. Don't worry about the versus forecast, because like I said, it's seeing that as text at the moment, it's a bit confused, but we're going to clean that up. Let's put the rest of the data in. Okay, this is building permits, remember? So let's change that actually to building permits. You can copy that. Okay, paste, match destination formatting, and then what I would put is annualized. Okay, is annualized as if it's for the whole year. So in brackets, I would put here annualized. Okay. So released monthly. Let's put the frequency in. 12th business day. We'll change this. Okay. Match destination formatting. Okay. Let's put here housing data at the top. Okay. Don't have to do it all this in the same order as me. You might be pretty good at this now. I've done it so many times. Obviously, I'm just doing it in a whatever order I can remember. Then we're going to copy as much data as we can. Copy, and I'm going to paste. Remember, we've already done the first line. We're now going to go underneath, do the second line, paste, match destination formatting. I might be covering some of this, but that doesn't. Let me just make sure. Yeah, I'm covering some of that one. Don't worry about that because we don't need it anyway. Delete. Okay, let's just get rid of. In fact, let's leave that. Let's leave that. What we're going to do is we're going to type these in, okay, as we've been doing so far. So 17th of November 21, 19th of October 21. I'm going to type all of these in. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to hit F2 and release, get rid of that M. Okay, so what we're going to have to do actually, because these are percentages, that's not going to work. So if I Control Z, let's make these numbers. So what I want you to do is highlight all of this, right click, format cells. Okay, let me just make sure I'm not covering any of this. Right click, format cells. Yeah, I'm covering a little bit, aren't I? So let me just move that out of the way. There we go. Format cells, number, and it's a percentage at the moment. We're not using percentages. Change that to number. We've got 2 decimal places, so make that 2 and hit OK. Okay. Now what I want you to do is get rid of all these M's. Okay, so you need to F2. See that it's gone to 1.71, 1.65. Okay, I need you to go through every single one of these. You'll only have to ever do this once and then you're done. And get rid of all these M's. Okay, so even the forecasts, unfortunately. Once you've done this once, you'll never need to do it again. There is a way you can write a formula to do to get rid of equals left and then the first 4 characters. But you know, when I worked in investment bank, I did incredibly complex. I even did Visual Basic and wrote Excel code, and I did all sorts of stuff. But we don't need to be fancy here. We're only looking at this once. It only makes sense to use formula when you're going to repeat a task over and over. You know, if I was doing this every day for the next few years and I had to keep removing M's, then I would write a formula. Because some of you that are better at Excel than me might be thinking that. You don't need to do that, okay? Honestly, for now it's fine to just do it manually because we're only ever going to do this once. In the future, we don't need to keep going back in history and doing this. So that's why I'm happy to do it manually, in case some of you are thinking, hey, you can write a formula. I already know that. Believe me, I've used Excel to a very, very high level. It's just not worth it for 2 minutes work. You're not going to save much time writing a formula. So just get rid of all the M's. Okay, I'm going to pause. I want you to update all these dates, get rid of all the M's, and I'll see you in a second. Okay, literally took a few minutes, then a couple of minutes. You'll never need to do that again. Versus forecast, I forgot. I'm sorry, this should be a number as well. So let's right click, format. Let me just make sure I'm not covering any of this. Format cells. Okay, let me just move that out of the way. Change that to a number. What are we? 2 decimal places. It's okay. Okay, there you go. So now you can see, and let's make sure we remind ourselves that this is millions. Okay, so what I like to do, just to be complete, just put M there, brackets. Okay, forecast and previous. So we know it's in millions. Okay, you can just make that a little bit bigger. Okay, maybe a little bit smaller so it doesn't get into the graph area. So, building permits annualized. Okay, so we've got our data. We've got our building permits data, perfect. Exactly as we want it to be. Let's just double check that that is the case. Don't forget, you can check the data, you know, so you can go and check from, obviously, as you know, my last piece of data on all of these is December 19, isn't it? Yours is going to be, might be further than that. I'm happy with that. Can you see that is correct? We went up, we had the dip, came back out, went up, had the dip and came back out, peaked there, and then rolled off. Okay, so we can see it's healthy, right? We can see during the obviously the coronavirus period here, we had building permits collapsed and then rose back up as obviously the construction industry became very sort of buoyed and enthusiastic again about the housing industry. So we can see that, and we'll discuss that anyway when we analyze this data. For now, let's just make sure we have it at our fingertips. So next thing we're going to do is we're now going to put the existing home sales number in. Okay, so, and then we're done. That's our housing data. It gives us plenty of housing data to look at every month. And 2 of the biggest releases, the building permits, and then obviously, as you can see, existing home sales. So let's work on existing home sales. My latest release is December 22nd. Okay, so I'm going to go across here. What I'm going to do, right, just to make my life easier, maximize this, because I want the formatting to be the same. I'm almost going to copy, okay, I'm going to copy this. Let me see if this works. I hit copy there, so I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it here, because the formatting will be identical then. Let me see if this works. Paste. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so that works. Because you remember I had to change everything to 2 decimal places and all of that stuff. So that's done nicely for me there. So I just pasted that across. Now, obviously, I've just pasted building permits into building permits. I don't want building permits twice, right? You can see it's got basically 2 identical lines there. I want existing home sales. So let's change all of this over. Copy. Okay, I'm going to change building permits, paste to existing home sales, hit enter. Because this is also annualized, released as a monthly number, but annualized, okay? So it's an annual number. We're going to copy the data across, copy. Okay, in here, actual forecast previous, paste. Match destination formatting. Okay, don't worry about this, we'll clean all of this up. The date is what, 22nd of December. Now, unfortunately, existing home sales is released a few days after building permit, so I can't just copy the dates that I've just spent a couple of minutes rewriting, but it won't take us long anyway. We're then going to, and this is the only time you're going to have to do this, okay? Once you've put the history once, that's it, it's done. Like I said, that's why I don't bother writing fancy formulas for this. You don't need to. You're only ever going to do this once, really. Okay, the history, I mean. So the same thing, okay? I need you to get rid of all these M's, update the dates. Okay, so for example, get rid of that M, 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 okay? just delete, so F2, I'm pressing F2 and backspace, get rid of all the M's. Okay, I'll see you in a sec. Okay, so I've changed all of them. I just got rid of the M's basically, very straightforward, and I put all the dates in, okay? So just make sure you've done all that, make sure it all lines up. You know, January is for December, that looks all correct to me. 22nd November, 21st October, yeah, all looks happy, I'm happy with that. I'm not going to check this data just yet. Now one thing, let's maximize this, okay? It's a bit tricky, I'm going to show you something that you're going to have to do. Part of the issue that we've got, okay, is that whereas before when we had two lines on one chart, can you see that CPI, it's all aligned because we're kind of looking at both things in very similar percentages, you know, 0.5, 0.8. Whenever we've got other CPI year on year and PPI, you see they're all very close together. So we can use one axis and they can share them, right? Both of these series can share an axis. Same for retail sales. The core is 0.3, the headline was 0.3, 1.7, 1.7, 0.7, 0. Very close together. Imagine the core was like 10% and the headline was 1%. It'd be very difficult to have them both on one axis, and that's the problem here. Think about it, okay? We've got here around would you agree, on average, about 1.5, 1.6 million every month. Building permits, annualized basis, on an annualized basis are being issued. We've got existing home sales on an annualized basis 6 times that number. Can you see, if we put them both on the same axis, they're very hard to compare because we've got existing home sales number that's 7 times as big as the number of permits being issued. They are kind of correlated, you can see that, but because this is down here and that's up there, very difficult to compare. So what you want to do is you want to have existing home sales or building permits have its own axis over here, so we can compare the two, right? Now to do that, very straightforward. Okay, what I do, there's several ways of doing this. I do a change chart type, okay, and where's it gone? Can you see combo? Okay, this gives you a preview. Now what I want is I want both of them to be lines. So building permits is a clustered column, existing home sales is a line in this new chart I'm proposing to Excel. I want them both to be line. Okay, so this one, I'm going to go to line. Okay, make sure they're both line. Can you see? Okay, so now it's looking similar. It's the same, right, as we have it. What I'm going to do is I want one of them, like I said, to have its own axis. I don't want them both plotted on here. Right, at the moment, can you see building permits are around 1.5 in that region, between 1 and 2, and can you see home sales are there between 6 and 7, okay, which is kind of where they are right now. Can you see between 6 and 7 million? I don't want that. I want all this to be plotted on its own axis. You can choose which one, and you're going to see that they will suddenly become aligned. So let's just go with building permits, have that on a secondary axis, or you can have home sales, right? Doesn't really matter. Let's put home sales, okay? I'm going to click okay. Do you see that? It's brilliant because I can now see them close together. Now there is one other issue, okay, just to kind of make your life more complicated. And in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip these around. Sorry, I'm going to do change chart type. I'm going to make that the secondary axis because it's the first one that gets released. I'm going to put it this way round. Either's fine. In fact, give me a second. It's been a while since I've done this. I beg your pardon. I should have checked this. Decided on this before. Yeah, that's right. Let me do it this way. And the reason I say that is because building permits is released first. Let's have it on the left. Housing comes next. Let's have it on the right. Okay. Now, believe it or not, I believe there is an issue with this data, and I'm going to tell you why. So just to reiterate, change chart type. Make sure you go to combo. I've got existing home sales on my secondary axis. It's up to you which one you do. Really not going to make a difference. Click OK. What you're going to notice is we've only reversed the categories on one axis. Okay, so we're going to have to do it for both. So let me show you what I mean by that. And I believe that is the case. So can you see existing building permits? Existing home sales is 5.54. And this is coming up as 1.4. In fact, they both need reversing, don't they? So let me just double click here. Okay, so what you need to do, they're both going to need reversing. It's because I was fiddling around with them. So if you, as in just there, we were just messing about with which one we wanted on the secondary axis. So what you want to do, right, what it's doing at the moment, look, it's not, it sounds complicated, it's not. What it's doing is, like I said before, it's assuming that both the data is going from like this, 1, 2, God, stop that, Control Z, 1, sorry about this, let me just get rid of formatting here. Okay, so what it's assuming is it's thinking that this is point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, just get rid of that. So it's assuming that is January, February, March. Basically it's assuming the chronological order of the dating is from top to bottom. We know the way that obviously the data we're picking it up, can you see here, it's going from bottom to top. January, February, March, April, May, June, it's going from bottom to top. Excel think it's going from top to bottom, so it's getting not confused, but it's plotting it the wrong way around basically. So what we want to do first is we want to flip the data, double click the axis, okay, categories in reverse order. Okay, so now we've suddenly got the data in the right order. Okay, so can you see here, you've got building permits of 1.71, which is correct for November. Okay, 1.71, 1.59 for September, 1.59 for September. The problem is it's only flipped the data for building permits. It hasn't flipped, can you see? It's plotting 5.54 December as the last number. Do you see? It's going down still. I know this sounds like a lot, but it is pretty straightforward. It's just a couple of setting tweaks that need tweaking. So what you need to do is you go to chart design, because at the moment what it's doing is it's just showing me the axis for one of the series. So I need to add chart element, axis. See that secondary horizontal? I need to add that in. Okay, now what it's giving me is it's giving me the axis for the second series, which is basically the existing home sales. So that I also need to do in reverse order. Okay, categories in reverse order. There you go. Okay, see, we got there in the end. Can you see it's now very highly correlated, which makes sense. Existing home sales, permits, you'd expect them to be roughly correlated. It's the housing industry after all. Okay, so that's perfect. Exactly how we want it. For some reason, it's decided to put the home sales number over here, but don't worry about it. I'm not going to bother changing it back again. It's how I had it before. I'm going to highlight this, make it the same sort of sizing. So what's that? 12 and bold. Let's make that 12. Okay, bold. Okay, perfect. It's exactly how I want it. This is, end of the day, let's be honest. Home sales are somewhere between, kind of, even there we had the COVID dip, but let's kind of do 8 million and through 4 million. We don't need to go 0. Home sales are never going to be 0, right? So it's silly to have it as 0. So let's change that axis to, let's do 3.5 to 8. Okay, so I double click here, 3.5, and I'm happy with where it's at, 8. Okay, and let's do for this permits, which is this side. Okay, this side is permits. Let's kind of do 1 to 2. I think that's Makes sense. Would you agree? 1 to 2. So axes options, just checking it's recording again. Nervous. There we go. Perfect. Very happy with that. Okay, that's your housing data basically. In a way I never see presented anywhere else. Have you ever seen it presented like that? I don't. This is gonna get us much further ahead of the competition when we're looking at housing data. Can you see? I'm fairly happy that the housing market, I can see straight away existing home sales. Can you see recently, you know, doing very, very well, fairly stable around the kind of 6 to 7 mark. The number of building permits being issued, doing well, fairly stable around the, this is on an annualized basis, I can see it here, 1.6, 1.7. We've had a little uptick recently in the housing market. Okay, so you know, perfect way to see that. You're not going to be able to see that otherwise, right? You can see that the housing market has had a little uptick recently. It's doing well generally. You're not going to see that unless you lay out your data like this. Very happy with that. Just make sure we've got everything correct. Existing home sales, let's just get the right frequency in. Release monthly about 20 days after month ends. Copy. Paste in there. Okay. And we're also going to have, let's just make sure the permits, we've got the right frequency. Where is it? Building permits. Release monthly on the 12th business day. Yeah, perfect. Okay, just make sure, I just want to do a final check, make sure I'm leaving you with the correct data. Let's just make sure that looks correct. So 1.71 for November, 1.71 for November, 6.46 for November, for existing home sales, 6.46 for November. Let's just make sure it's the right way around. 5.54 December existing home sales at the bottom, yeah, and 1.42 for December at the bottom. Perfect. Okay. Hopefully that's useful for you, ladies and gentlemen. We've got another couple to go. Literally core PCE and trade balance, and then we're virtually done. We've got the perfect, probably one of the best dashboards in the world, let's be honest, when it comes to fundamental data. So we've just got those two to go, and then we'll be able to move on and start actually making use of all this data, which I'm really excited to do with you. I'll see you on the other side.